You are listening to Packers Talk Radio Network.
PackersTalk.com.
Eddie Lacy, Mike Daniels, Gilbert Brown, Don Barclay, Micah Hyde, your Green Bay Packers, yesterday's legends and today's superstars. From corporate or nonprofit events to private parties, add some spice, hire a Packers player from Mayfield Sports Marketing. For details, just go to PackersTalk.com and click on Player Appearances.
Are you looking for some signed Packer memorabilia?
Look no further than Waukesha Sports Card.
If a Green Bay Packer can sign it, Waukesha Sports Cards has it.
Check our website for upcoming Packer player and legend signings.
Go to WaukeshaSportsCards.com.
This is Titletown Sound.
Prepare yourself for overwhelming intelligence.
He's going to look like Gronk riding a unicorn carrying a lightsaber.
I know how toast works.
Clay Matthews, Squirrel Whisperer.
Your squirrel naming game is not strong.
The turd cheeseburger could come back.
If one of us wants to pee on it, sure.
I'm not bailing you out on that.
I was acting unprofessionally.
I'm just here to ruin things.
Welcome once again to Titletown Sound, episode number 65, the Ron Hallstrom edition of the podcast. I am, of course, Dave Bobke, also known as Bobbo, and I'm dreaming of eating McRibs and drinking Crystal Pepsi. Also here this week is a man dreaming of McDLTs and drinking Orbits, Chris Kristofco. How are you, Chris?
I'm good. I actually this is a true story, I once ate 4 McRibs in a sitting.
Ooh.
That's going on my bucket list now.
It was, but you know what? Clear some time after that. Trust me. Just clear your calendar.
A lot of things are going to be getting cleared out of after that, I'm sure.
Also, make that last on your bucket list because you're going to die when you're done.
It probably will be the last. Anyways, and of course, our buddy Jeremy VanderLinden is also here. He was dreaming of eating McPizzas and drinking Surge. Jeremy, how is your side of the Titletown Sound Studios?
It's fantastically clean, and that's all that matters.
That is excellent. On today's podcast, Chris makes a murderer, Jeremy eats cereal, and everyone else just wonders about Bobbo. Thoughts like, how did this get made? But first, let's talk about the game that we don't want to talk about, but we have to because that's our jobs. The Packers and the Vikings, Week 17 action. I don't even know where to start about this. There's a couple of highlights. What the heck? Let's start with Mason Crosby. He was a highlight. So, Jeremy, Mason Crosby, please gush. Get us off to a good start here.
Mason Crosby, I thank you for being amazing because one of the worst things as a kick returner is being tackled by the kicker. One of the very worst things on the face of the planet is being stripped by the kicker, and that is exactly what we got to see on game day. Thank you, Mason Crosby. We love you.
So this is an unexpected segment, but this is I'm a man and I was wrong. I believe it was 2 years ago where I wrote the piece that the Packers should cut bait and get rid of Mason Crosby. I'm a man. I was wrong. But who thought that a kicker would come back from, like a serious case of the yips and be the MVP in the game against the Vikings yesterday? But the Sunday. I'm so out of it with this game. This team.
It's all right.
But it was fun to watch, at least with some excitement and some effort. And when I saw it happen, I was almost mad because I was like, really? Now they're going to toy with me, and they're going to make me think that they got a shot at this. And they're going to, break my heart eventually. And they did. They toyed with us. That's what they did. Mason Crosby was really just an evil, evil man who made us believe for another split second that they had a chance.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about another highlight on the defensive side of the ball. Micah Hyde had a mind-blowingly awesome interception. And on maybe a minor, I'm a man and I was wrong. I've been feeling a little down on Micah Hyde lately. Don't know that I've been real vocal about it, but that pick was freaking awesome. And Jeremy, on a scale of 1 to 10, 7 being the highest, what would you rate that interception?
I would definitely rate it a 7 since that's the highest out of 10. But I have to disagree with you. I don't think you're wrong. I don't like Micah Hyde in certain situations, and I think those situations are the ones that you have been feeling down about. I don't like him covering tight ends. Not a fan, and I haven't liked it all season. Well, we haven't seen much of it since early in the season because it's bad. So
we didn't see much of it early in the season because you couldn't really call that covering.
You're right. We didn't see it early in the season because it wasn't happening. But at the same time, that interception, he deserves credit for that. That was impressive. I don't know how he caught that. That was ridiculous.
It was like, it won't get as much love, but it was like Odell Beckham Jr. like. I mean, it was contorting and the concentration. It was incredible. And that was the point in the game where I thought, all right, now they might actually do this, just because it was kind of an inspirational play, an effort play, and this defense was there. I mean, I did enjoy the small moments in the game, even though the game itself was just horrible, because you got to have fun with those moments. And that was a cool one. That was really, and I put that up on Vine, on our Vine account. I think it got like 10,000 loops within a minute and a half. People loved it. It was just an incredible play.
It was fantastic. And again, one of the few highlights that really came out of the Vikings game. One thing we wanted to talk about that wasn't so good on the offensive side of the ball, the Josh Sitton, a lot of people are calling it the Josh Sitton experiment. I was, conversing with our friend Kelly on Twitter and saying, I don't know if I'd call it experiment so much as a thing that happened, because I'm not really sure anybody's planning to put Sitton at left tackle long term. But Jeremy, I want to say on a scale of 1 to 10, 7 being highest again, but obviously it's not going to be a 7. How bad was Sitton at left tackle exactly?
He wasn't terrible per se, but the problem is you don't take a guy who hasn't played tackle in a bajillion years and randomly say, hey, dude, you're playing at left tackle tonight, when you got a guy playing at right tackle who used to be your left tackle.
Thank you. Why is this a thing?
Right. Why was Brian Bulaga not playing left tackle? And I know Don Barclay was bad against the Cardinals, but I'm more comfortable with him at right tackle. And I don't understand why Bulaga wasn't put at left tackle the week prior. They set Don Barclay up for complete failure, putting him at left tackle, especially against the Cardinals in Arizona. And then just none of what they did makes sense. If you're going to move somebody on your offensive line, why would you move Josh Sitton out of left guard to play left tackle where he doesn't play ever when you got a guy who can play left tackle?
Maybe they just figured it was like the least amount of physical movement position-wise.
Sure,
like,
less distance.
He's a guard. We just move him 2 yards over, and now he's a tackle. But that's the only thing, because it makes no sense. You're absolutely right. So left tackle is obviously a more difficult position because it's the quarterback's blind side. It's generally going to be your best opposing rusher. But if you've got a right tackle who understands the position and has played it for quite a long time and has experience playing left tackle, and then you take a guy instead who is a guard, which is a very different position. Sure, you're banging up against defensive dudes still, but it's a very different position. You're playing in a phone booth as opposed to playing around the corner. Why does that make sense?
It doesn't.
I don't understand it. Guess what? There's two words. There's left and tackle. The most important word is tackle, not left. Just because the guy plays on the left side of the line doesn't make him a left tackle. And before the game, we were all speculating, would they move Bulaga over and maybe play whoever at right tackle, whoever that was, Treader, Barclay, Josh Walker. I saw all of these suggestions, and almost any of them was kind of reasonable.
Sure.
But what they did, we're like, hey, they must know something we don't know, right? I mean, that was kind of everybody's reaction. Like, hey, I guess they know. No, they didn't know anything we didn't know. I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't think Sitton understood either.
This is just like the antithesis of this entire season. Like many moments of, well, they must know better. Well, they must know something more than we know. And then we watch on Sunday and go, wait a minute, this is exactly the crap I expected. No, they don't know. And you know what? They do know. They know so much more than we do. They know so much more than we ever could. But this year they have been wrong so many times. Maybe the distance thing is a factor, and they're thinking we want to keep Brian Bulaga as healthy as possible, so the less walking for him is probably for the best. That's what it was. That's what it was. We don't want you to walk to the other side of the line. We want to save your knees and your ankles. And I don't get it. I don't agree with the idea. I didn't agree with it when they did it. It happened. We're over it. And it has already been announced he won't be playing left tackle this week. So the Packers apparently agree that it was a terrible decision.
Yes, I must concur. Any other thoughts on the Vikings game you guys want to talk about, or should we move on?
The way I felt about the game is I was kind of numb watching it. Like it was exactly what I feared and expected they would do, which is come out on offense completely flat, play a pretty damn good defensive game that was going to get wasted again, and it was. It's so frustrating, and yet in no way was it surprising. I was not confident going into the game that they were going to win based on how they played. But I don't know if you're like me, though. I wasn't confident at all. And then 10 minutes before the game, I'm like, all right, they're going to win. Let's watch this. And I bought back in. But when we were talking before the show, we all had the same feeling. Like, I don't even want to, I don't want to break this game down. I don't want to examine plays. I just want to forget about it. Unfortunately, A lot of games this season have happened that way.
Yep, it's just been the same thing week after week. We've been watching a team that works. At least in the middle of the season, we're thinking like, okay, they're going to flip the on switch soon,
right?
And it's coming. And now we're at a point where we know the on switch isn't a thing. It's not going to be turned on. And what we've seen is what we get. Now, Aaron Rodgers is really excited about this game this week. Jason Wilde was talking about it on Green and Gold today, about how Rodgers genuinely believes that they're going to flip the on switch this week. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I have no reason to buy it. It's not going to happen.
No one does. They could win a pitcher's duel. That's about it.
Sure. I'm not saying they're not going to win.
Right.
All I'm trying to say is that the Packers are not going to suddenly be an offensive juggernaut again this year. It's not going to happen this year. Maybe next year. Not this year. It's not going to happen. The on switch, it's not a thing. So going into that Vikings game, we, as Packer fans, we knew what we were going to see offensively, especially against a defense that's been pretty darn good this year. So, yeah, I don't want to talk about much more of that game. Let's move on.
Fair enough. Real quickly, we got to do pick three because people love pick three, of course. And I've got my three. Jeremy, do you have your three?
I do.
All right. Who from the Vikings would you want to add to the Packers?
So my three are Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks, and Kyle Rudolph. No explanations. That's just what they are.
All righty. Well, we get to pass the whole Vikings thing quicker that way, so that works for me. Chris, your thoughts?
My thoughts are, how about Matt Khalil? I don't know. Kyle Rudolph, I'm literally flipping through a roster right now. And
you're pulling a Jeremy. That's my move.
Yeah. Now, so last time, by the way, I want to point out, last time I picked Ragnar.
Yes, you did.
And we got Ragnar. It's the first time ever a pick three has come true. So
this is true.
I'm just saying.
You're the only one that's been right.
I'm so proud of that. And I'm at the end of the roster, and I see Mike Wallace, so I know it's not a good choice, but I'm going with it.
Sounds good. You could have picked. You can't pick Ragnar again. They fired him, and we already got him.
Exactly. So he's no longer on the Vikings.
You could have picked the Metrodome's old Petrovs.
Oh, that would have been brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still better than the Packers offense.
No. They're better at catching things. At least you're.
We'll be here all week.
Oh, criminy. I had Ragnar down as my third pick from the Vikings, so do I have to pick somebody else now?
You do, yes.
No, for the crap. Okay, my first pick still Adrian Peterson because he's still a terrific running back. Second, I got to go Kyle Rudolph too. Having a tight end like that would be nice. And third, maybe I can bend a little bit Have you seen a picture of what's going to be the Vikings' new stadium?
Yeah, the Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah, that it's got like that great dome that looks exactly like a toilet seat. That may have been photoshopped, but I'm pretty sure it was legit. So I'm going to go with the toilet seat dome as my third pick.
Oh, dude, you can't do that. That's sacrilege. You can't put a dome on Lambeau Field. Rah, rah, rah.
I didn't say put it on Lambeau Field, just like put it next to Lambeau Field.
Oh, like you just want it? Like it's not something you want to make use of? You just want to have it around?
I just think it'd be cool to own.
All right, I got you.
You like put it over the Hudson Center or something?
Sure.
Yeah. All right. On that note, it's time to talk about our sponsor. Titletown Sound is brought to you by the Law Office of Christopher Schultz. Christopher specializes in traffic and municipal violations, wills, and estate planning. If you're in need of help, Chris has your back. Call 920-252-0692. The number again is 920-252-0692.
So Chris, I had a really big speeding ticket. It was not a good moment for me. I was actually speeding in a construction zone, so it was double bad. And Chris actually took care of it. And obviously, it's not completely gone. If you're speeding as much as I was in a construction zone, you're going to have to pay the ticket. But what the ticket was dropped to like the minimal, the smallest thing it could possibly be, and my insurance was unaffected. So Chris, he did wonderful work for me. And if you're having trouble with stuff like that, you should give Chris a call.
All righty. On that note, let's talk about something we've been rather excited about here at Titletown Sound Off, and that is an article that our buddy Chris here wrote called "McCarthy's Expiration Date Has Passed." And Chris, I'm going to let you take it from there.
So I wrote this because, and I sincerely believe it, that it's time. Doesn't mean, and I put this caveat at the beginning of everything. I think McCarthy is done in Green Bay, and when I say he's done, I don't mean that he'll be fired. I don't necessarily know if that'll happen because he's got an extension recently, and he's 10-6 this year in the playoffs. But I think his effectiveness is done. So before people jump all over me, that doesn't mean he's a good coach. He's a great coach, and he's still a great coach. But and I put in the article that Bill Walsh said basically 10 years is your shelf life as an NFL head coach with a team. And I think he's probably just about right. And McCarthy's been here long enough, and I think he's ineffective here. We'll go somewhere else if he were to leave and be very effective. But there's a few problems that I saw. First was his relationship with the veteran players. And that, I mean, honestly, some of the big veteran players, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Sitton, some of the others, and there's not that many veterans on this team really, but those two have been very vocal. Rodgers, first of all, basically, after the NFC Championship game, he says, we had some chances to do some things. We were too conservative. He said, quote, "We weren't playing as aggressive as we usually are." Right after the game, he's essentially criticizing McCarthy. And I think he was pissed. So we move into this year, and McCarthy makes Clements the play caller. Clements and Rodgers, by all accounts, are very, very close. McCarthy even says Aaron has an excellent working relationship with Tom, and the fit with Aaron is the highest priority. So after, or just before the Cowboys game, is when Martin McCarthy announces that he's going to pull play calling duties and he's going to take him back. So after that game, after they win over Dallas, what does Rodgers say in the post game? He says, "I don't think it was about the play calling. It was about execution. Today, the execution was a little better." So he's saying, I know we made this change. And Rodgers' words are always really carefully chosen. This isn't a mistake. He's saying, no, it wasn't McCarthy taking play calling. We just played better. So then when they lose to the Cardinals, he says, "We didn't have a ton of guys open. We have to find a way to get guys open schematically with motion and formations." So now when they lose to the Cardinals, when they win, it's not play calling. When they win, it's execution. When they lose, that's play calling. Why didn't we have better schemes? Why wasn't the game plan better? Why wasn't McCarthy better? That's what he's saying. And he's saying this in the media. This isn't behind closed doors. I think the relationship is strained between the two of them, and I don't know that it's coming back. I don't know. And so we just talked about Josh Sitton playing left tackle, and you could hear in his comments after the game, I think, that there were some issues. He said, I went out there, I did the best I could. I'm not a left tackle. I think I'm a guard. I think I proved that I can play pretty decent at guard, but we needed somebody to go in there and play. I'm not a left tackle sounds to me like he's saying, look, they knew I wasn't a left tackle. I knew I wasn't a left tackle, and they put me out there anyway. Maybe that one's not as much. And that's what I thought when I was writing the article. And I put that in there. I said, maybe this isn't a big deal. But, and we can speak to this a little more, but then Sitton followed it up this week. Jeremy, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, but not only that, I want to go back even further for Sitton, because earlier in the year, so he does a radio show with WSSP in Milwaukee, and he's pretty blunt, and he always is, and that's kind of their thing with him. Like when they're sharing that the show is coming up, they're pretty clear that like he's going to say the things that are on his mind. Well, earlier in the season, he was talking about how the offense had grown stale, how the offense was just like he was kind of ripping the scheme, which essentially is ripping the coaching staff, because they're the ones that are putting that together. He's throwing them under the bus. Then he says what he says after the game this week, and then he's on his show again on Tuesday, and they ask him what the relationship between McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers is like, and if there's strain there. And he starts off by saying, ask me when the season's over.
Yeah,
and
I heard that.
I think he realizes at that point, okay, that sounded bad. I'm going to say it's a joke. And he says it's a joke. I don't buy it. I
agree with you. Absolutely.
I think
listen to that clip.
And then he goes into that. He goes into it even more, and he starts talking about how it's two strong-willed guys and blah 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 blah. Whatever. The point is, it comes down to there's actually a problem that he's not going to talk about. Clearly, he's not going to go into too much detail about the actual issue, but there is an issue there. And going back to what you said about when they picked Tom Clements as the offensive coordinator and said the fit with Aaron is of the utmost importance. They were trying to find a guy who's going to work well with Rodgers because Rodgers is picky. I think he's
that was a very diplomatic way to put it.
I just think it's from both sides. I think Mike McCarthy and Bill Johnson said this on Green and Gold today. He's been saying this for a while, and it's starting to actually make sense. McCarthy was mad after the NFC Championship game. He was mad at the way that Rodgers was talking about the play calling, and he said, fine, you can have it. I'm not going to call the plays anymore. If this is what you want, fine. That's never a good way to make a transition. And then he picks Tom Clements, and I think the thought there was, let's put him with a guy he'll be happy with. Let's put him with a guy he's going to be satisfied with as his play caller. And Rodgers, throughout the year, interestingly enough, as bad as the offense was pretty early on in the season, Rodgers was defending the offense. He was defending Tom Clements. Before Mike McCarthy made the change, there was talk about, or Rodgers was being open about how he felt like Tom Clements is good at his job, and he can do that job, and Aaron Rodgers trusts him. He had talked about that before McCarthy took play calling back. And then McCarthy takes play calling back. I think McCarthy grew impatient. I think he realized the truth. This is not what it used to be, and I need to fix it, and he took play calling back, and it made Aaron Rodgers even more angry. I think there is an issue there. We don't know the full depth of it. I don't want to go crazy with this. I'm not trying to wear my tinfoil hat today. But I think there is an issue there that it can't be ignored. Players coming out and speaking openly against the coaching staff, that cannot be ignored because it's not normal. That is not a normal thing to happen. And if it's happening, it's because there's a disconnect. That is real. That's there.
And it certainly doesn't usually happen in this organization, which is very tight-knit and tight-lipped.
Yep.
But so the first issue is those veteran players and the issues that the coaching staff obviously has with them right now. And don't be fooled. Those little snarky comments during press conferences, they mean a lot, and they are on purpose. So the second thing that I saw and that I wrote about was that the message is stale. That McCarthy's been here long enough that his ability to motivate the team, it just might be done. And that happens to a lot of coaches. It's easy to see how after 10 years or so that the message can just be lost and it no longer works. And it's happened before all over the league. Very effective coaches have suddenly become very ineffective coaches. Like Andy Reid in Philadelphia was the first example that came to mind. I live in the Philadelphia suburbs. And so he reaches the playoffs 9 of his first 12 years as head coach. He took the team to 4 NFC championship games. He went to a Super Bowl, never won anything, but So then in 2008, he went 8-8, and then he went 4-12 the next year. So you think, well, maybe the team just sucked. They didn't have any talent. Well, guess who comes in and goes 10-6 the next 2 years? That's right, Chip Kelly, who's now the former Eagles coach as well. So Andy Reid, his message just got stale because then he goes to Cleveland, I mean Kansas City, and he immediately goes 9-7 and 11-5. He's still a very good head coach. His message was just worn out in Philadelphia. And maybe it's strained relationships with ownership or with other players, but I think that's what's happening. I think that McCarthy has kind of reached that Andy Reid status in Green Bay. He just might not be able to motivate anymore. And that's not necessarily his fault. It's not even the team's fault. It's just, I think, something that happens over time.
Yeah, I totally agree. Here's the thing. I'm still believing that if there's an issue there, that it can be repaired. Like, I'm still hopeful because Mike McCarthy is a fantastic coach. He's a great coach, and I'm sure you're hopeful too. That's a thing that can be fixed because Mike McCarthy as a head coach, paired up with Aaron Rodgers, has been so successful for the Green Bay Packers. You don't want to disturb that if you don't have to. You don't want to take that away if you don't have to.
Honestly, here's my take on it now is it's disturbed, and at this point, I don't want to find out 2 games into next year that it's still disturbed. Honestly, I don't want to find that out because then it's a wasted season.
I get what you're saying. I do. I can feel that for myself, like that I kind of agree, but I don't want to. I don't.
So it's like the Ted Thompson theory on older players. You'd rather get rid of them a year too early than a year too late. It's even more important with a head coach.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've heard a lot of criticism like, what? You'd have to be an idiot to want to get rid of Mike McCarthy. He's one of the best coaches in the league. I agree with you. He's one of the best coaches in the league, but that doesn't mean you'd be an idiot to say you should get rid of him. And because you wait too long. If you look at and we Jay, our good friend, Jay Hodgson and I were talking about coaches, and the magic number is like 4-12, that these coaches will go 10-6, 11-5, and then suddenly something clicks and they go 4-12. And it's happened like 6, 7, 8 times with high quality coaches that suddenly something just clicks. I would rather let McCarthy go now and make it and have it be too early than find out like game 3 of next year, really, when they're 1-2 and the offense looks the same.
And you got another season to wait for it to happen.
And it's too late, right?
Okay, so you're right. It has happened, and you mentioned two of the very like the best examples you can come up with are Andy Reid and Tom Coughlin.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. This is my thinking. If it's going to happen, the way that this team is run, and this team, I think this team is run really well. People hate Ted Thompson for some weird reason. I think he does a fantastic job finding talent for this team. It's not always perfect. Yes, they're missing some pieces. They need a tight end, and they need an inside linebacker. Sure. I think they still need those things. But every team has holes somewhere. Every one of them, okay? Ted Thompson does a great job. But one thing that this team is consistently is very patient. Look at Mason Crosby as an example. Mason Crosby went through a long slump, and they kept him. And we're all glad now that they kept him around, but they waited because they just were patient about it. So if a change is going to happen, it's going to be like Tom Coughlin. The Tom Coughlin change we've been waiting on for 4 years, or 3 or 4 years. We've been thinking, okay, or not exactly like 4 years straight or 3 or 4 years straight, but this year him being gone in New York, this isn't the first time that anybody ever thought about Tom Coughlin being out of New York.
Right.
It had been thought of in the past.
And I agree with you. I agree with you that it's very unlikely that something's going to happen. Though this week there have been more rumblings than in the past that something could happen coaching wise. Mm-hmm. Florio speculated. There's been some other speculation out there, but I agree with you. It's not going to happen. It's most likely not going to happen. But I don't know that that's the right call.
But here's my thing. If it needs to happen, this is where I start to have a problem. If it does need to happen, and we're about to watch the Tom Coughlin, Andy Reid end to Mike McCarthy's reign in Green Bay.
Right.
We're about to watch that happen. I'd rather it happen now because what's going to happen if it doesn't happen now is wasted years with Aaron Rodgers.
Absolutely.
Quality quarterback where you're wasting 3 or 4 years with a guy who can win you a Super Bowl with the right coach. And I'm not saying Mike McCarthy isn't the right coach. See, this is the weird thing. I know Chris agrees, but I feel like you need to be really clear because people are a little crazy. Mike McCarthy is a great coach. He is fantastic. And no, I don't want him to leave. But if there is a rift, and if it's real, and it's what's causing issues this year, it's not necessarily just going to go away. And if you want to keep watching the same issues we've watched all season, next season, that might happen, and that would suck. But at the same time, what's on the other side of this?
Right.
I'm afraid of going back into the Ray Rhodes, then Mike Sherman era, where that was wasted years for Brett Favre.
Yeah.
The Ray Rhodes year was a wasted year, and then the Mike Sherman era, they didn't go to the Super Bowl with Mike Sherman.
So the one thing I'll say is that if so, for instance, let's say they lose Sunday and McCarthy is fired Monday, again, an enormous if, and most likely fantasy land. But if that happens, this becomes the most desirable coaching vacancy in all of football immediately.
It's Green Bay because of Aaron Rodgers, because of the core that's here, and then it's New York.
Then New York. Yeah, New York is second. But it's a distant second at this point because of the quarterback. And look at the defensive skill you've got in place right now because the defense has been very effective this year. I mean, how many head coaches are sitting there watching this defense play the way it has played and watching Aaron Rodgers not playing well, but thinking, God, if I could just get my hands on that team, we'd win a Super Bowl.
Here's the thing, though. Looking at the defense, looking at the offense, and I know, we're not necessarily big Dom Capers guys.
No,
but he's got his defense clicking right now.
Yeah.
With a new head coach comes a new defensive coordinator. Sure. Maybe you get what you want, but maybe you get a few years where you're waiting for them to get their crap to click with the guys that are here, and then you start losing pieces of talent. And it only takes 2 years, and now suddenly your roster turnover is bad enough that you have new guys that are trying to learn this system that hasn't necessarily connected with the old guys, and so and then that coaching staff gets fired. It's like Packer fans have to be in this weird place where that if McCarthy has an issue with Rodgers, it's time. But you also know that what's on the other side may not be pretty. It may not.
No, it might not. But this side might not be pretty either. We could be staring down the barrel of 4-12.
You're right. And not just 4-12, but 2 more years. Right. But it'd be hard to believe if things implode and they lose in Washington and he gets another year, and then they go 4-12 next year. He's probably fired at that point. That's not.
No, absolutely.
But with guys like Tom Coughlin and Andy Reid, they were given the benefit of the doubt. They were given their chances because they are high quality coaches.
And the difference between Tom Coughlin and Mike McCarthy is that Eli Manning loved Tom Coughlin.
Yeah,
still does.
So. It's an interesting spot to be in, and we can keep railing on it, keep going and talking about it. But Mike McCarthy is awesome. He is fantastic, and we love him as a coach. We believe that he is one of the best coaches in the league, but we also believe that something is broken within his relationship with Aaron Rodgers. And you could say get rid of Rodgers, but that is never going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's going to be McCarthy before Rodgers every day of the week. That's how it's going to work. So. Got to be realistic about that. Rodgers isn't going to be traded. That's not going to happen. I've seen a lot of people, especially in all the comments on your article, a lot of people saying trade Rodgers. He's the problem. Are you kidding me? That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So one last thing I did want to say, because I took notes. This was I never take notes. Wow. I took notes. I was like, this is serious. I need to talk about this.
You didn't even take notes in college.
Never. Okay, I never take notes. So Jay talked about early in the season, the offense was struggling, and people were asking, why don't they just do this and change the offense to this and change the offense to that? And why aren't they running more of their West Coast stuff? And Jay talked about this on Out of the Pocket, and it was very good. He talked about how the Packers are running Air Coryell. They're not running the West Coast offense anymore. It's not what Packer fans think it is, and that's why you say things all the time like, why don't we see this anymore or that anymore? It's because they're not running it the same way that they used to. It's just different now. And they implemented their system in the offseason, whatever changes they made, if it's a big change, small change, whatever they were going to do, they did it within the offseason. They got everybody to learn what they needed to learn in the playbook in the offseason. And then once the season starts and crap hit the fan, they can't suddenly say, oh, by the way, here's your new playbook, because then you lose your locker room, because then you lose your guys. And they start to say, if this guy couldn't get us ready over our break, over our time off in the summer, if he couldn't get a playbook put together and get us ready to go for the season, like, I don't know. It starts to make the team question. But at the same time, on the other end of the spectrum, and the thing that I think we've seen this year is that if you don't make enough changes, it also has that effect. I think we've seen the same offense week in and week out. I think players are irritated. The relationship that's broken with Aaron Rodgers, if that's the case, it's not just Aaron Rodgers anymore. Josh Sitton is clearly not happy with the way things are going. Players speaking out about the way things are is because they don't quite understand why it continues to be what it is. They're not happy with what's going on, and I think they want to see more change. And Mike McCarthy is one of the most stubborn coaches in the league, so he keeps doing what he's doing, and I think it's making people unhappy.
All right. Well, I haven't talked in about 20 minutes now, I think, so I'm going to start talking. And my voice is all well rested, and now it's time to introduce your voices. We're going to talk Twitter questions now. Wow. You can tweet at Titletown Sound any old time, day or night, with your questions, your comments, your musings, your wonderings, your what have yous. And we got a few things we want to touch on here, starting with Joel Van Handel at PackFanJoel. Pack is spelled P-A-K if you want to follow him on Twitter. I wonder if he's related to the Van Handel Cheese Hut in Appleton at all. That's a great little gas station mini-mart stop in there. Anyways, a lot of Packers gear too. Joel tweeted, to win this game Sunday, Pack will need some kind of big play spark. Where will it come from? Offense, defense, or special teams? Chris, I'm going to throw it to you first.
If they win, where will it come from? I think if they win, the spark will come from the defense. Maybe there's points scored on defense, but I think that's where it'll happen.
I think if they win, it's going to be the running game. I think that they're gonna run the ball like crazy. If they're gonna win, they need to run the football because their guys aren't getting open. It's not going to start now that the playoffs are here.
Okay. I'm inclined to say it's going to be something on the offense. Something gets going on the offense. The defense will just keep doing their thing, and they'll be happy to be off the field once in a while. So I hope that answers your question, Joel. Next we have Doric, Packers fan. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. At Doric, Packers fan. Rodgers will show up when it matters. Daniels, you can't just turn it on and off. So who's right? Jeremy, Rodgers, or Daniels?
I think, well, it's tough because we've seen the Packers turn it on and off. And I don't know if on and off is the right term, as much as they've gotten off track and corrected themselves as a high-quality team and a high-quality offense. They've been able to right their wrongs. And this year, they can't right their wrongs because I think their wrongs are too wrong. I think Mike Daniels is the one that's right. The switch isn't going to be flipped. It's not going to happen.
Unfortunately, I agree. Look, Rodgers said we'll show up when it's for all the marbles. Last week was kind of marbly. There were a lot of marble. There were a lot of marbles to be played for, and it looked like they didn't show up. I don't think they could turn it on. If they could have turned it on, they would have done it a while ago. I agree. It's not happening.
Yep.
All right. Maybe Rodgers values his marbles and he's waiting for this week. Maybe last week they were playing for Pogs or something like that.
Pogs. Wow.
I miss Pogs. Anyways, moving on. We have some thoughts from Ryan Minetti at Minetti Ryan, on Twitter. Said Redskins had great performances on offense against the three worst defenses in the league. I think they might be overhyped. And he had a snippet here to read. Which part of it is cut off, but it says since their 44-16 loss to the Panthers in Week 11, that 17th ranked defense was the Eagles' defense, which was an indifferent shadow of its former self when the Redskins trounced it in Week 16. The Redskins faced the 30th Giants, 31st Bears, and 32nd rated Saints, of course, defenses in the league in the second half of the season. That doesn't mean Cousins and the offense failed to make real progress. But if it looks like they skipped some of the steps between laughingstock and unstoppable, And then the quote kind of keeps going and is running off of my screen, so I can't read it. So basically, it looks like he wanted us to talk about the Washington offense looking better and clicking more of late, but they're playing really crap defenses when they're doing it. So we're going to talk about Washington in a couple minutes, but Chris, anything come to mind when you hear that kind of talk?
Yeah, there's probably some truth to it that Washington's has been overinflated in the last few weeks. But I can't stress enough how ineffective the Packers have been. So it's almost as if it doesn't matter. I don't know that I'd be confident they could beat many people, but or many teams, I should say. But yeah, I think they are a little bit overhyped. This is not a juggernaut that the Packers are facing. But with that said, they don't need to be a juggernaut to win at home. It's not to say the Packers can't win the game, but they're a little bit overhyped. But they still might be good enough.
Yeah, I think they are good enough. Jordan Reed is going to be a handful this week. He's got 952 yards this season. The Packers, they don't cover tight ends very well.
No, they don't.
And,
sometimes not at all.
Right. And Jordan Reed is having a really good season. He's got 11 touchdowns. Jordan Reed's going to have a good game. Okay. This is definitely an offense to be concerned about, but at the same time, you have to remember that the defense has been pretty darn good. Now, if there is catastrophic failure and the defense crumbles this week, oh my gosh, the horror. Oh my gosh, the horror. Pierre Garçon, another. I love Pierre Garçon. I'm a big fan. He's another guy they have the pieces in place to be a good offense, to become a consistently good offense. The Packers defense is pretty darn good this season, so that really bodes well for Green Bay. But, Kirk Cousins has over 4,000 yards this year. It's not like, we haven't heard a ton about Kirk Cousins, but he's quietly had a decent season. So this is a good offense the Packers are going up against. Not great, not top end of the league.
Quietly? I mean, come on. You like that was like the most popular Vine in the history of the internet.
Yeah.
Okay. You like that. Yeah, fine. Okay. No, you're right about the Vine. Great. As far as his stats as a quarterback, for me, I had no idea he had put up 4,000 yards.
Yeah.
I didn't know because nobody's talking about the passing yards that he's putting up. I mean, nobody's really talking about Kirk Cousins. It's been the Cam Newton show all dang season. But yeah, you have to be concerned. How much? I don't know. We'll see. It's kind of one of those things for the defense. They're playing well enough. You can at least be confident in that.
All right. I'm happy to say that in the last 2 minutes, I figured out how technology works, and I opened up the rest of what Ryan sent us here. The full point that he wanted us to touch on was Cousins and the Redskins have now faced a defense ranked higher than 17th in Football Outsiders defensive ranking since their 44-16 loss to the Panthers in Week 11. Goes on to say if it looks like they skipped steps between laughingstock and unstoppable juggernaut, it's because the offense kept getting better while opposing defenses got progressively worse, distorting the slope of their improvement. It seems to me like even if you're playing crap defenses, you're still playing professional football players, so there's still something to an offense putting it together. I'm still concerned about this team. I'm still concerned about their offense.
I think the truth is always somewhere in the middle. So they're not going to be crazy, insanely good, but definitely an offense that they're going to be able to put up points and move the ball.
All right, Jeremy is hedging his bets. On that note, let's again, you can tweet at us at Titletown Sound. Just wanted to mention that one more time before we move on to our next segment, which is a new segment. Yay! Woo! All right. The crowd goes wild, and it's the voicemail segment, and I'm going to let Jeremy take it from here.
All right, so we added a phone number. We'll be giving that out by the end of the show. We want to hear from you, but a couple Packer fans called into the voicemail, left us some messages, and Packer Nation is just sad. They are just so sad this week. Let's see what they had to say.
Available to take your call. Please leave a message after the tone.
There's 12 minutes left
in the third quarter. I don't understand why the Packers are not changing the game plan on throwing. Why are we not throwing short routes? Why are we not throwing screen and hooks and flats? Why is this stuff not happening?
Oh man, where do I start in this whole thing? They said something's wrong on the interior line. I mean, like, this locker room itself. It seems like everybody's so unmotivated, just negative energy, I guess, to put it in hippie sense. I think all the coaches have officially lost the locker room as a whole, and they're kind of in the middle of a mutiny or something. I don't know. But something's wrong, and it's looking really bad. I thought I had seen a lot of potential out of these guys, but it just seems like everybody's so sluggish and unmotivated. And it's just like, it's a coaching thing. It looks like a really bad coaching issue right now.
Obviously, we just had a very tough loss to the Vikings, and we lost our reigning conference championship status. So now some Packers fans are happy that we're playing the Redskins, which I think is, I don't think we should be very excited to play them at all. We're facing a red-hot Kirk Cousins who's thrown like 3 touchdowns in, each of his past 4 games or whatever. He's been killing it. He's playing like Aaron Rodgers in 2011 these past 4 games. He's on a great streak. He's got some pretty good weapons in Jordan Reed and Alfred Morris. I don't think we should be very excited to be playing the Redskins at all because they're playing fantastic football. And honestly, I feel like it's going to be another one and done this year. And that's probably the best thing for this team at this point. We need to regroup in the offseason and figure out how McCarthy is going to fix the offense and just get Jordy back. We just need the offseason to get right.
There you go. That is the Titletown Sound Off voicemail.
If it's a little echoey on the podcast, that's because my head is now in the oven after listening to that. Sad. We're just sad.
It was tragic. There was a lot, a lot.
I loved the guy who called in during the game. God bless you, and everyone should do that. He's like, there's 12 minutes left in the third quarter, and what the hell is going on? That might have been my favorite.
No,
by the way, thanks to Colleen who called from Lambeau, but was so pissed off. Oh, sorry. She's so ticked off that she cursed a couple of times, so we probably couldn't use it anyway.
No, you should have sent me it. Okay, next time Colleen calls and she swears a bunch, send it to me. I will ramp up the beat machine, and it'll be awesome. Oh, God. It was fun to make, first of all. I enjoyed making it. But second of all, man, Packer fans, you're all so sad. The Packers are in the playoffs. They still have a chance. It's still there.
No, they're sad for a reason.
No, you're right. You're right. Some things are different, but at the same time, they're in the playoffs. Oh, gosh. So, if you want to call and leave us a voicemail this week and let us know how you're feeling about the Green Bay Packers, we would love to hear from you guys. This is Chris's brainchild, and I'm really glad we started doing it because this is going to be a blast. I'm just waiting on the calls for, Jeff Janis. I'm surprised we haven't already gotten, Jeff Janis forever.
I thought we would get, 40 calls or it would just be someone screaming Jeff Janis and hanging up. But
right.
I was busy this week. Sorry.
Yeah. So, if you want to call into the voicemail, the number is 920-445-8876. You can find that on our Twitter account at Titletown Sound. But again, the number is 920-445-8876. Call and leave us a message. Let us know how you're feeling about the Green Bay Packers. Let us know how you're feeling about Mike McCarthy. We would love to hear some voicemails about how you're feeling about that article. And if you think that we're all just crazy and this podcast is just complete shenanigans, you can call 920-445-8876 and let us know.
And the more you've had to drink, the more you should dial.
Yes, the more alcohol that is in your body, the more calling you should be doing. Yes, there's that.
Alrighty. Well, on that note, let's kick another shot back before we get into this playoff talk. Green Bay against Washington. Starting with Washington's offense. They are doing better lately. And looking at their stats here, 10th in the league in points scored per game. That's really where it matters. Even though some of the other numbers not as impressive, they're kind of middle of the pack roughly in yards. 20th in rushing, 11th in passing. They do have some decent weapons. Kirk Cousins having a pretty good year at quarterback. Deshaun Jackson, Pierre Garçon at wide receiver. Jordan Reed, I'm sure a guy you guys are going to want to talk more about at tight end. He's going to be a pain in the neck. And I mentioned in this week's player-to-player article a guy named Corey Lichtensteiger, who is coming back after, I believe he was taken out in week 5 with an injury. He's back in the lineup, and Washington seems to be pretty happy about that. They feel like the running game is going to be much better with him back in there. So, Jeremy, Washington's offense, what do you think?
I think their offense is going to move the ball, and I think they're going to score. I've kind of already said my piece. I've kind of already said my piece on the offense when we were talking about, when we answered that question. So it's kind of hard to do again.
Well, I think one thing we didn't talk about with this Washington offense is that they're also going to be probably most likely facing another Sam Shields-less defense as he failed to leave the concussion protocol. Which is disconcerting for a team on Thursday. I don't know that Shields will have a very good chance of playing. So yeah, I think they're going to be able to move the ball. I think we can stop the running game. And if you can get some pressure, the defense is going to have a pretty good day. I think it's going to be a low scoring affair. By the way, I was watching, I don't know what it was, NFL Network or something. It was just kind of on in the background, and I saw the dumbest stat I've ever seen on the crawl on the bottom, and it was that the Washington was like 8-0 when they've scored 21 points. That's like the Packers are 10-0 when they've scored more points than their opponents. Like, yeah, when you score 21 points, you're probably having a pretty good game.
Yeah, probably.
So I hated that. I wanted to punch that stat maker in the face.
Yes.
Oh, I'll have worse stats for you later.
Nice.
So excited. So I can't wait.
All righty. Defensive side of the football, Washington. Not looking great. One thing I noticed is of their 3 top tacklers, 2 of them are members of the secondary. Only one is a linebacker. That's usually not a good sign. And looking at the stats from NFL.com, still not very good numbers. 28th in yards allowed, 380.6 yards per game. That's not bad. Doing okay, not giving up points, middle of the pack there. But passing yards and rushing yards allowed, not very good. And some of the names you might recognize: Deshaun Goldston, safety, Ryan Kerrigan, Preston Smith, I think out of Louisville, has been doing pretty well the last couple of years. So, Chris, anybody on Washington's defense that is of particular note in your mind, or anything you're concerned about with this defense?
No, I think against this defense, you really have to exploit the running game. And I think Jeremy said this earlier. If they can run the ball effectively, if they can't run the ball effectively, the Packers can't run the ball effectively, forget it. It's over. Because against this team, you should be able to run the ball effectively. But they need to run the ball really well. And I think, as Jeremy suggests, I think that's the key to this game. If they can rack up some running yards, possess the ball, tire the defense out, that's how they'll win.
Yeah, I think the Packers need to scrap what they've been trying to do all season and just run the freaking ball. Run the ball, depend on your defense, let them do what they've been doing, and run the ball. Make every game sloppy. Keep the ball in your own hands and just keep trucking. They need to focus on that. And against this defense, this is a good time to start. This is a very good week to start. So I think the Packers have a very good chance against Washington. I think they have had games that, yes, they've played against defenses that are towards the bottom of the league. And so maybe they're red hot right now, and maybe that momentum really actually matters regardless of who they've played. But I don't think Washington is quite as good as people want to think they are.
So they aren't who people think they are?
Yes, they aren't who people think they are.
So we shouldn't let them off the hook.
We should not let them off the hook. We should not. Yeah.
Should we crown their asses?
We should not crown anyone's asses. At all. Ever.
I'm out of sound bites to quote, guys.
Yeah, me too.
Let's go to the next segment, Fantasy Pick'em. The winner of Fantasy Pick'em each week gets 30 seconds at the end of the show to say whatever the heck they want. And I'm sorry to say, I think that was Jeremy's idea, and he's been winning almost every week since then. And he sort of did it by proxy last week. James, I should say 2 weeks ago, because we didn't actually have a podcast last week, because we were all, we had a little too much eggnog last week. What can I say? But James was filling in for Jeremy 2 weeks ago and picked a team that was good enough to win Fantasy Pick'em.
That is such horse bleep that we get a guy to come on for Jeremy and he still wins Fantasy Pick'em.
Yep, Jeremy brings in the ringer to sub for him.
Well, hey, you know what? I can't help it. All I do is text them the picks as you guys are doing fantasy.
Oh, yeah, right.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to take my 30 seconds to say.
You have it at the end of the show.
You don't get that yet. Come on.
Yeah.
Dang it! I was so ready. I had
that
this thing and that thing to do, and
nope. Chris and I got a pick, and then Jeremy's going to be picking on the turn. I finished just behind you, Chris, because Jared Abbrederis didn't do that much, unfortunately. Everybody loved that pick when I made it, and then they didn't throw the ball to him, so that sucks. Sad panda. All right, I am going to say, you know what? If the Packers are going out, then I'm going to go out and fantasy pick. I'm in a blaze of glory. First pick, I'm taking Aaron Rodgers. Chris, you got the next pick.
Choose wisely.
Yeah.
No pressure.
This is tough. All right, I'm going to take Eddie Lacy.
Dang it.
Ooh. You upset Jeremy. That's a win.
Yep. We're all winners already.
That's okay.
Yes.
I will be speaking openly for 30 seconds next week as well.
Here we go.
I am going to take Jordan Reed.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take, you can go ahead and have Kirk Cousins, but Jordan Reed's going to have
the victory.
1 billion yards. And it's really tough for me to pick any of the Packers receivers. It's so hard. This week, I'm going to be the genius. I'm picking Jared Abbrederis. Boom!
Oh, yes. Thank you. So if Jordan Reed has 1 billion, just a little quick math. If Jordan Reed's going to have 1 billion yards, how exactly is he going to get the ball?
It's okay. You know what, though? He's going to get the ball from Kirk Cousins. Yes,
exactly. He's going to get from Kirk Cousins, who will be the fantasy winning quarterback and will be on my team with Eddie Lacy.
But Kirk Cousins is also going to throw like 17 picks. So.
Oh, here we with the green and gold glasses.
That's right. Go, Brad, go. I don't have my soundbite ready.
Yes. All right. Hey, that's 2 wins for us. You didn't have that toy ready to go. All right. I got the last pick. Aaron Rodgers, and I'm going to go with Pierre Garçon. Washington's wideouts are pretty good, so you got to figure one of those guys is going to have a pretty decent day. So I'll go with him. I'm more likely to draft Pierre on one of my actual fantasy teams than Deshaun Jackson because I think Deshaun's kind of an idiot. He was doing that whole dropping the football before I reached the goal line thing before it was cool, before Eddie was doing it.
Plus, you like that little thing under the sea, Garçon. You're a fan of that.
Oh, sure. I've got an English degree, man. I got to love that stuff.
Okay, well, since you got an English degree, I'm putting you on the spot. What's that thing called?
It's called a thing, Jeremy.
All right.
It's called a French thing. It's a French thing.
So,
an English degree, not a French degree.
All right. So because you guys bore me, I was looking at Twitter while you were talking, and Doug Moore, who says he's a freelance NFL writer, on Twitter says that there are rumblings that if the Packers lose, Mike McCarthy is out. We also saw Florio say it. So, interesting, huh?
Indeed. Interesting.
Very interesting.
I don't know. That guy could be a total hack. I don't know, but it fits my narrative, so I'm going with it.
It's all. Those rumors are all coming from the same source. It's the drive-through window operator at the Green Bay McDonald's. So, don't believe it.
You mean so? But if it's that drive-through operator, it could be coming from Eddie Lacy then.
Oh, you're right, because Cheeseburger Eddie works at McDonald's on the weekends.
No. He just drives through every day.
No, I was saying he works there because he likes the 50% discount.
Oh, dear. All right, before we start singing Jimmy Buffett parodies of cheeseburgers in Lacey's stomach, let's go on to True False, where, again, James was filling in for Jeremy, had a pretty good week, getting 4 out of 5 correct.
Wow.
But Chris also had 4 out of 5 correct.
Yep, that just happened.
You guys should miss the podcast more.
Yep, my week just completely sucked. So I'm pretty well out of the running and any chance of winning this thing at this point, which is pretty par for the course, I'd say. So Chris, you are comfortably above 500 right now. I'm happy to inform you.
Oh, thank God.
So just hold on and keep Jeremy down. That's all you got to do. So you guys ready for True False?
Absolutely.
All right, here we go. True False number 1. Aaron Rodgers passes for at least 225 yards. He's averaging 239 yards or so per game. Washington allows an average of roughly 258 yards per game through the air. So, Jeremy, Rodgers passes for at least 225 yards. True or false? Wow.
True! It is true, because my green and gold glasses are taped back together after James crushed them, and the Packers will continue winning with my homer, cheering, whatnot craziness.
Well, 225 is a pretty modest number, so I'm going to say true. Doesn't mean that the Packers offense has a fantastic day, but has a reasonable day.
There's a reason that I picked 225 as my number. And that is, so we would all say the same thing so that Jeremy can't catch up to Chris and end up winning the True False for the season. So I'd say true as well.
I don't know if I believe that, Bobbo, but if so, you're an evil genius, and I love it.
I am at least 50% of that. True False number 2. The Packers record at least 3 sacks. Kirk Cousins has been sacked 26 times, tied for 4th least. The Packers with 43 sacks on the season, tied for 7th most. It's a big disparity there. So I'm going to go a little high on this one. Packers record at least 3 sacks. They do have Lichtensteiger, or whatever his name was, back at center. So there, you got to consider that. Jeremy, Packers record at least 3 sacks. True or false?
I'm going to say true. I'm going to say they have 4 sacks. And I'm going to say Julius Peppers gets 1. Clay Matthews gets 1. Ha Clinton Dix gets 1. And Mike Daniels gets 1.
So 3 is the number?
3 is the number.
I will say false. Not much beyond that. I just don't think they'll get to him that many. They'll probably get 2 sacks, but I think 3 is a little bit high.
All right. I'm going to say true because screw it. I'm out of the runnings anyway. I'll be optimistic. True False number 3. Washington rushes for over 120 yards as a team. On the season, they averaged 97.9 yards on the ground, 20th in the NFL. However, in 2 of their first 4 games, when they had Lichtensteiger at center, I might add.
Here we go.
2 of their first 4 games, they had 1 rusher in 2 games out of their first 4, had over 120 yards by himself. So it wasn't just as a team they had over 120. They had an individual rushing for over 120. This just blows my mind. That's why I keep going on about it. True, false? Jeremy, Washington rushes for over 120 yards as a team. True or false?
The Redskins, excuse me. First of all, I hate the name Redskins, but old habits die hard, and I never talk about Washington ever. So now here we are doing a podcast about them, and that comes out of my mouth. Washington, the Washington football team, will have an abysmal day on the ground. And you can say what you want about Lichtenberger or whatever his name is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yeah, Limburger. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Because, fine, he's finally coming back from injury. We've seen a lot of players this year come back from injury for the Packers and do nothing. So it's time Washington pays the price and, get completely annihilated by the Green Bay Packers.
I don't remember the question.
I don't blame it. Washington rushes for over 120 yards as a team.
False. I think I'm not wearing green and gold glasses, but I think the defense will be the bright spot again and will shut down the run again. And I think it's actually going to be an amazing day against the run.
All right. I'm going to say true for 2 reasons. Number one, the Lichtensteiger is going to turn BJ Raji into dust because he has that kind of power. And secondly,
exactly what accent are you doing there?
I'm not exactly sure. I feel like I got possessed for a second there.
It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger meets sadness.
It was like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Brewmeister Smith from Strange Brew had a love time.
Arnold Schwarzenegger and Burgermeister Meisterburger. That's what it was.
If I can get a mix of Schwarzenegger and Homestar Runner, I'll be in good shape. But anyway, the second reason that I'm going to say true is because I'm wrong all the time anyway. So, nuts to Washington. So, that said, we move on to true false number 4. And now I'm thinking about Max von Sydow for some reason. Doggone it. All right. I know too much about movies. All right. True false number 4. Jordan Reed catches at least 8 passes. He averages 6.2 catches per game. The Packers, off the top of my head, allow approximately 18 pass completions to tight ends per game. It might be 28. I forget. But Jordan Reed catches at least 8 passes. Jeremy, I have a feeling I know where you're going to go with this, but true or false?
I have to be a realist on this one. So if the Packers lose this week because I was finally a realist, I'm sorry. Jordan Reed will have, what is it, more than 8?
At
8 or more
least
catches?
8. At least 8
catches? Yes, true. He will have that.
Yeah, he might have 18, so I agree. True. Plus, if I agree with Jeremy, he can't catch me.
Right. This is why I should not be picking before Chris.
I was going to say true anyway.
I'm going to say true to Chris's statement about Jeremy not catching up. And I'm going to say false. Reed only catches 6 or 7.
Bobbo, you're just bitter. You are just bitter because you're not going to win. You're not even close.
I wouldn't say I'm just bitter, but that definitely plays a large role in it. True false number 5. At the 2-minute warning of the second half, the point spread between the two teams will be no larger than 7. Basically just saying it's going to be another close game. We're going to be pulling our hair out toward the end, whether the Packers are winning or losing. So, at the 2-minute warning of the second half, the point spread will be no larger than 7. Jeremy, true or false?
Go. False. The Packers will be up by at least 70 by then. So, false.
Chris.
The answer is true. I'm not sure why you chose the 2-minute warning as opposed to the end of the game, but true.
All right. Well, I wanted a little wiggle room in there, but I'm going to say true as well. I hope I'm jinxing it by saying that, but well, there you go. All right. So, I'm in a hurry to get my 30 seconds of glory. You've got your 30 seconds, Jeremy. By the way, I do want to mention this. Anytime Jeremy's got the 30 seconds of glory, nothing that is about to be said in any way, shape, or form represents the beliefs or thoughts of anyone associated with TitletownSoundoff.com except for Jeremy VanderLinden himself, and possibly not even himself. Go ahead.
All right. I was going to have a 30-second segment talking about how awesome Bobbo is, but now I've decided to do something different.
Burn.
I didn't buy that for a second.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so my 30 seconds. First of all, in my 30 seconds, I want to encourage you to call 920-445-8876 and leave us some voicemails this week. Because, first of all, I enjoyed putting that together. And second of all, I just want you to do that. And then the next thing is this. I want to give credit to James Korsmo. He was added to our group of writers somewhere in the middle of the season, and he has been fantastically hilarious. His articles are top-notch, just funny stuff. And he won for me in fantasy in the last podcast. And he also made some good true or false picks for me. So I just wanted to take this moment to give him some credit for his effort and his work. James, thank you so much. You are making this season even more fun for us, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, I can't hate on Jeremy for that.
Yeah, that was, yeah. That kind of takes the fun out of it, you know?
Yeah.
That was touching.
Yeah, James and I have been talking a lot of wrestling too. So that's cool.
Well, hey, come on. I've been talking about wrestling with you guys too. So am I not
That's
talking
true.
a lot of wrestling? Do I need to talk more wrestling?
We need to talk more Japanese wrestling. Actually, that's one of my dreams for this podcast is to figure out how to say welcome to Titletown Sound and then do the whole introduction in Japanese, just so you guys will have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. Which you probably don't already, come to think of it, but it'd be another angle. Anyways, never mind that now. It's time for predictions. Green Bay Packers going out to Washington. And I did want to mention this on the last podcast. We had this weird thing where James and Chris and I all had scores that ended in 8s and 4s. And the final score of the game was 38-8. So we were right about the 8s. We were wrong about everything else, but we did have that going for us. So in that spirit, I'm probably going to have 8s for my scores for both teams. And Jeremy, feels like this is it's nobody's really positive one way or the other about Green Bay or Washington winning. How are you feeling about it?
The Packers are going to roll, all right? The Packers are going to win. It's going to be 752 to negative 752.
That's not even a real prediction.
No, it's great. I think it's real. Feels real to me.
I don't have that numbers that high on my keyboard here. I can't write it in.
Unfortunately, I think the final score will be 28-27 Washington. And I think even worse, it'll be in some heartbreaking fashion that makes you want to throw your mobile device out the window. So I'm hoping I'm wrong, but 28-27 Washington.
I've been wanting a new cell phone, so.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking along the same lines. I think those first couple drives for both teams are going to be so crucial. If the defense gets after Kirk Cousins early and can stay on him, I think it's the Packers game, basically. If they don't and the receivers get going and the passing game gets going early, this game is going to royally suck for us Packer fans to watch. So, you know what? I'm wrong most of the time when I pick these sorts of things anyway. So, in that spirit, I'm going to take Washington to win as well. And I'm going to say 34-28. But I do not have any degree of confidence in saying that whatsoever. Packers could win a close one because Washington is kind of due to fall apart again. Who knows? Maybe the Packers will figure something out on offense and go off.
Yeah.
I don't know. Jeremy's score might not be that crazy.
Right.
All right, quick around the horn. We didn't plan this. If the Packers lose, okay, here's the scenario. Packers lose by more than 10 on Sunday. Is Mike McCarthy fired?
Ooh, define fired.
No longer has a job as the head coach of the Green Bay Packers.
Bobbo, you go first.
Okay. See, well, it's the reason I want to mention what fired means is
or resigns.
Oh, or resign. Okay, then I will say. I'll say yes. What the heck?
I'm going to say yes, too, because you threw resigns in there. And I think that it is more likely at this point that Mike McCarthy resigns than he be fired.
Well, and if he resigned, it would be a mutual because, it would be an agreement.
Yeah, I think that if there is a rift there, even McCarthy understands that he's got to take his talents to South Beach. So, which actually is available. He could go with the Dolphins. So, but I think in the end, Mike McCarthy might be the one to call to make that move. Like they'll allow him to at least publicly say that he's the one that made the move. So, yeah, it's possible.
Yep, and I agree with that. And I've just made this long podcast even longer.
That's okay. It was a fun podcast. I enjoyed making it. I enjoyed talking Packers. This is the funnest podcast I think that I've been part of in a while, but I haven't been part of a podcast in a long time. So, it is what it is. Thank you for listening to Titletown Sound. We enjoy making this podcast for you to listen to. Follow us on Twitter at Titletown Sound. You can follow Chris at TTSO_Chris. You can follow Bobbo at That's Our Bobbo, and he might even tweet. And you can follow me at TTSO_Jeremy. The website is chock full of good things for you to read and take in and enjoy, including Chris's article. If you haven't read it, you need to go to TitletownSoundoff.com. The article is called
McCarthy's expiration date has passed.
McCarthy's expiration date has passed. Go to the website, check it out. Tell us we're crazy. Leave a comment. Leave us a voicemail. I would love to hear an angry voicemail. Please, please, please call and be mad at Chris. I want it so bad. Thank you for listening to Titletown Sound. We'll bring you guys another podcast soon. Bobbo, you got anything to say?
First of all, that thing in Pierre Garcon's name is a Latin script letter, just FYI. And like I said, I don't have a French degree. I have an English degree. It's totally different. And secondly, I do want to say, don't forget to pet your cat because it's getting nippy out there.
It is.
Your cat wants to be warm and petted.
Yes.
I want to be warm and petted, so.
Oh, no. Chris, you got anything to say?
Good night, Prince Janice.
Yes, Prince Janice, we love you.
Yes.
Have a good night. Have a good week. Enjoy the Packer game. We will talk to you guys next week.
Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. And they're always glad you came. You want to be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You want to be where everybody knows your name.
Are you looking for some signed Packer memorabilia?
Look no further than Waukesha Sports Card.
If a Green Bay Packer can sign it, Waukesha Sports Cards has it.
Check our website for upcoming Packer player and legend signings.
Go to WaukeshaSportsCards.com.
Eddie Lacy, Mike Daniels, Gilbert Brown, Don Barclay, Micah Hyde, your Green Bay Packers, yesterday's legends and today's superstars. From corporate or nonprofit events to private parties, add some spice, hire a Packers player from Mayfield Sports Marketing. For details, just go to PackersTalk.com and click on Player Appearances.